Welcome to the Bible Forum. It's Sunday night. I'm Warren Sprouse. It's Palm Sunday, and we're on the Bible Forum together. We've got a lot of things we're going to talk about tonight. I trust that you are settled in. You've got something to drink, something to eat. We are streaming live here on the Bible Forum website as well as on our Facebook page. Those will all be coordinated before usually by 9 o'clock Monday morning. I upload the Facebook video to I upload the Ustream video to the Facebook page because I can edit one and not the other. And usually when I do that at night, and then it takes an hour before that thing gets straightened out. So it's usually Monday morning. But we've got a lot of things to talk about tonight. I want to jump right in here and share some things. We've got a student over in Indiana University, the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I don't understand how that works. He's a senior in religious studies. Said he was punished by a female professor when he questioned a lecture that she aired, apparently, during her class back in February. The students watched a 15-minute TED Talk from an ex-pastor and transgender woman. Now, you have to keep in mind this is a man who's dressed like a woman, wants to be known as Paula. I guess maybe his name was Paul, I'm not sure. But he talked about male privilege and sexism from men. This transgender ex-pastor then asked the females, no, I take that back, the professor in the class, when it was over, asked the females in the class to give their thoughts on this particular TED Talk. None of the women spoke up. They didn't seem to have an opinion. So the professor opened it up to the rest of the class to see if anybody else had anything they wanted to say. And apparently a young man opened his mouth and told the professor what his opinion was. And as a result, this young man was asked to leave the class and not to return. He was referred to the university's Academic Integrity Board, and he got a notice from them saying, you are barred from attending this class in accordance with the classroom disruption policy, provost, so. The policy apparently specifies that the alleged violation included disrespectful objection. Now, keep in mind the woman on the screen was not really a woman, that the professor asked only for female comments. And when the comments were open to everyone, and this young fellow did not agree with the premise, the professor said, we can't have that in our class. And then he was kicked out. This is what passes for, what is the term they use now? Progressive, open, this dialogue kinds of discussions. This is in universities. What are we learning here? If you were awake, you were paying attention this week, you found out that the so-called Omnibus bill was passed in the House on Friday. This is a bill to budget the government for another 5 months, a bill that no one read. And the progressives, Democrats and others, are happy. The vote was just after midnight on Friday. That made it Saturday. And the bill was a $1.3 trillion spending bill, kept the government from shutting down while paving the way for the next funding fight, which will come just prior to the midterm elections in November. The House had approved its version Thursday in a bipartisan vote, 256 in favor, 167 against. The Senate passed the bill 65 to 32. The bill will fund the government until September. It will increase military and domestic spending. It will exceed the budget caps, all of them, adding $1 trillion to our national debt. And it doesn't fund the new wall. Democrat leaders in both House and Senate are pictured with big smiles on their faces and where they are being pictured. And the president came out the next morning in a tweet saying, "I'm thinking about vetoing this bill." He didn't think that it really did everything it was supposed to do, based on the fact that the 800,000 DACA recipients have been totally abandoned by the Democrats. They're not even mentioned, apparently, in this bill. And the border wall, which is desperately needed, according to the president, for our national defense, is not fully funded. And then he proceeded to walk over to his office and sit down and sign the bill. I think he's playing with them. I don't know. It's a little bit crazy. There wasn't any conservatives that I heard or read about that were happy with this event, but this is politics in Washington. You do this to get that, and I guess we're going to do this the next time around. I don't know. Our president fired his attorney general this week. Makes one to wonder a little bit as to what is truth. I said attorney general, didn't I? No, it was a general, but it's not the attorney general. The attorney general did the firing. He fired Mr. Mueller. You remember, we're playing with this guy back and forth. Should he go? Should he not go? He's really basically a crook. But the question became whether or not the Attorney General should fire this man before his birthday on Sunday, because that would make him not eligible for his pension. And we heard that for what, a week? But it just isn't right. That isn't the truth. And after the event occurred, after this man was actually fired, it came out that we learned that all of this reporting was untrue. Mr. Mueller is not eligible now to apply for his pension for another 7 years, at which time it will be a full pension. So all this was a tempest in a teapot about something that didn't really matter. He wasn't going to be able to get his pension now. He's going to have to wait 7 years. The man is like 50 years of age. It's not a big deal. He's worth over $11 million. Why are we worried about this man? Our president has decided to move the American embassy to Jerusalem. You all know that. It's been in the news a lot, pro and con. Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas has been under great pressure to accept President Trump's so-called deal of the century. Egypt and Saudi Arabia are closer to the American position than that of the Palestinians, and they're pressing the Palestinian Authority chairman to show political pragmatism and go along with the program. However, a Hamas leader, whose name I can't pronounce, speaking at a recent demonstration, said the Palestinian people, who have known revolutions and intifadas, are ready to enter another confrontation for the Temple Mount and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, stressing that there is a religious, national, and moral obligation to protect them both. He called on the Palestinian Liberation Organization to withdraw its recognition of Israel, to cancel the Oslo Accords, to stop the diplomatic process and the security coordination with Israel, and to oppose President Trump's so-called deal of the century. President Abbas is currently under political, economic, and financial pressure to agree to this deal of the century. It also includes indirect threats that if he refuses to do so, he will be replaced by another leader. The East Jerusalem newspaper Al-Quds reported on March 17th that both Egypt and Saudi Arabia were putting pressure on Abbas and on King Abdullah of Jordan to stop opposing the deal of the century. Such is the power of the Trump administration. Or, such is the will of God that this confrontation occur. The Bible's clear. During the Great Tribulation, Israel's capital city will be Jerusalem, will be under siege by the nations round about. And the great pressure will be coming from the north, from Magog's coalition, with Egypt in the south playing the part of opportunist. The Magog coalition will push down from the north. And when it looks like they're being disrupted and they're not making progress and they're a little bit in disarray, then Egypt is going to rush in from the south to try to capitalize on everything. It is interesting to me that the Muslims involved in that area are actually working in favor with the American government, with Israel, and apparently with God on this particular issue. Stay tuned. We have something in America we call free speech. But apparently free speech is a euphemism in the in the Socialist Republic of California. A California high school teacher has been placed on paid administrative leave after she questioned whether a student walkout would be allowed for the pro-life cause. You know, they have these student walkouts for all of these other issues. What about one for pro-life? She has been placed on paid administrative leave. All she did was ask a question. It's obvious that not everybody can be a nuclear scientist. 45 million Americans are on the hook for a more than $1.4 trillion student debt. The obvious but cruel reality has always been that choices have consequences. This apparently is something the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, the Generation Ys, and their children, the post-millennials, who are now being called Generation Z. Do you see where this is going? Generation Z. We've run out of letters. So whoever's making up this stuff thinks this is as far as we can go. But they're called the Homeland Generation. And these people, everybody since the greatest generation, never seem to get it. They've never really been able to understand. And generally, younger Americans actually believe that they are entitled to a college education no matter what it costs. There's something in the water, there's something in the wind where these young people are concerned that says it doesn't really matter how much money I spend or how far into debt I go. If I get a college degree, it'll all be okay. What does a liberal arts degree get you? You get a bachelor's degree in liberal arts. What do you have? You have the same thing I had with a high school diploma. maybe not as much. The average college graduate leaves school with about $31,000 worth of debt, a monthly payment of something in the neighborhood of $300. Now, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, $300, but it is a car payment. So why are students really struggling to repay these loans? Well, much of it comes down to choice. If you choose to study business, economics, engineering, computer science, or anything practical, you could walk out of college and start getting a salary of anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 right off the bat. For people who make this much, it's not very difficult to pay a few $100s a month in student loans. With unemployment at its lowest level in years, the labor market is tight enough that a new graduate with a successful degree shouldn't have any trouble getting started in the workforce. But what if you major in philosophy or gender studies? Well, you might struggle a little bit trying to find a job in your field, let alone getting a job in any field, one that pays you any kind of money. According to The Atlantic, quote, underemployment afflicts more than 50% of majors in the performing arts, anthropology, art history, communications, political science, sociology, philosophy, psychology, and international affairs. I once had a man working for me who was entered into a program, seeking a master's in medieval French poetry. He was working for me at $5 an hour in a bookstore. I asked him one day what that degree would fetch. What would he get for it? What would you do with it? And he couldn't tell me. It's really good for not much of anything but teaching. And if that kind of a course would probably be in a college level. But he took the course because he liked it. It was that simple. About 5 years later, I saw him crossing a highway with a briefcase in hand on his way to the college, UNCW. And I thought to myself, he's a professional student. He doesn't care. He's running up the debt, which he does not have to repay until he graduates. And he's making sure he never graduates. It's easy to understand why young people would pursue worthless degrees. But it wonders me why parents would go along with it. Some parents are actually paying for this. Some parents have paid for part of it. Makes you wonder if maybe the so-called brain drain, maybe it started a generation earlier. Or maybe it was even before that with the boomers who made life so easy for the millennials that they believe that they can just keep this thing going. It's called pie in the sky thinking. Now, I would encourage them to stand up, open their eyes, look around. The world is cascading into near oblivion, while these people go merrily along, assuming that tomorrow will be just like yesterday. And the newsflash is, it never has been, and it never will be. In my day, when I actually was working in industry, not much higher than a laborer, I was getting paid $6 an hour. Today, it would take more than 3 times that to be able to have what I had at $6. We're talking in a range close to $50,000. It's not going to be yesterday, tomorrow. It's going to be tomorrow. Wake up. Did you see what happened today? when 800,000 people marched on Washington, D.C.? Stick around. We're going to talk about it.